my mother-in-law, Joan, tampered with my birth control, resulting in me getting pregnant postpartum. I'm not really sure what to do from here. Let me just start out by saying, if you know who I am, please don't say anything. I created a throwaway to vent and cry and get support as anonymously as possible. I'm still very happy about the pregnancy, or at least want to be. I just need support. Thanks for understanding. My husband, Mark, who is 22, and I, 20, welcomed our daughter into the world 18 weeks ago. She's a darling baby and really pretty easy as far as newborns go, except for one thing. She wasn't a son. His parents were obsessed with the idea of us having a son, to the point that they denied she was a girl up until the moment she was born. Why? Because the bloodline follows the father. If you don't have a son, our family name will die out because your daughter will marry a man and carry on his bloodline, so girls don't really count. The day they came to visit in the hospital, his parents asked when we would be trying for another baby. We kind of just laughed it off, but my mother-in-law got more insistent, straight up telling us, "You all need to try for a boy." Over the next month or two, the conversation about us having another baby sort of tapered off into little comments every now and again. I had no problem ignoring them, and we'd already told them it wasn't happening, so I just let it run off my back. Around this time, Joan started coming over daily for a few hours, watching the baby for me so that I could sleep, and also occasionally cleaning up a bit for me. She'd be over unsupervised anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. Fast forward to the present day. 2 days ago, my husband poured me a mixed drink, and when I brought the cup up to my lips, I got hit with this paranoid and panicked feeling. I immediately put the cup down and insisted we take a pregnancy test. Sure enough, it came back positive. We waited until the next morning, took a digital test, and again, positive. Based on my last menstrual period, I should have been about 6 weeks along. After getting over the initial shock, we were excited but confused for several reasons. We hadn't been able to get hormonal birth control, so we'd been using condoms and lube to make sure they didn't tear. We weren't sure how we'd gotten pregnant, but we were happy with the news. We decided we wouldn't tell anyone because we didn't want another baby stampede from his family, but I'm incredibly close with my sister-in-law, Beth, so I decided to tell her after swearing her to secrecy. When I told her, her eyes got wide and started to water, and she asked if I was serious and was I sure. I told her I know my husband and I are young, but between us, we make more than enough to support another baby. Beth burst into tears and started to apologize over and over. Meanwhile, I sat there with my mouth hanging open, lost. She calmed down a bit, and through her tears told me that my mother-in-law has been poking holes in our condoms pretty much since we came home from the hospital. She claimed Joan told her she did it, but she thought that she was just spouting off because she was upset we didn't have a boy. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. That's why the condoms didn't work even though we were careful with them. That's why she'd always shoo me off to sleep while she was around. That's what she was doing when she was cleaning my house, snooping for our condoms. And she knew I wasn't on birth control because I remember complaining to her about how my OB went on maternity leave and I wasn't able to find another one that took my insurance at the time. I'm so angry I don't know what to do. I want to go right over to her house and tear her a new one so bad I can smell my tires burning on the blacktop. I'm also illogically angry at Beth for not telling me. How could you think this was a joke when she was so specific about everything she was going to do? Why didn't you warn me? I would have put my condoms in my room. I'm livid with Joan. I'm pleased with this pregnancy, but it wasn't my choice. It wasn't even an accident. It was her meddling because she didn't get the golden grandson she wanted. I don't even know how to handle this. I want to scorch the earth, but I also still don't want his family knowing I'm pregnant, and I'm not even 12 weeks yet, so the risk of a miscarriage is still uncomfortably high. The only bright side of this whole thing is it snatched my husband out of his mother's fog so violently he's probably got whiplash. Personally, my pregnancy has soured a bit, so I'm really trying to hang on to any happiness I have about the pregnancy left. If you have Irish twins of your own, or are one, I'd love some positive feedback on that situation. Where do we go from here? Here's an update. First, let me clarify. I am 20 years old, not 18. I'm 18 weeks postpartum, not 12. 12 weeks is when I would have conceived, given that I'm 6 weeks along based on my last menstrual period. Second, I don't give a damn if you think this is fake. I honestly wish that it were. If you don't have advice to give, I kindly ask that you take your judgment elsewhere. Now that that's out of the way, here's the update. I want to thank you all for your support and suggestions. Having a plan makes me feel way less panicked and overwhelmed. Sadly, what Joan did isn't a crime here. so there won't be any jail time or charges pressed. For now, the game plan is no contact with Joan for me, the baby, or the growing baby once the truth is out. Before then, I want all the proof in the world she did this. I've ordered a hidden camera, and I'm going to buy new latex-free condoms, claiming that I'm suddenly allergic to latex. Hopefully, she'll poke holes again, and I'll have video proof this time. Even if I can't use it to press charges, I want all the proof I have that she's not safe to be around, so she can't sue for grandparent rights if this baby is a boy. I also have decided to change our family last name to literally anything else because I'm petty, and since she wants to act an ass over this stupid name, then nobody gets it. As for my husband, he's willing and ready to do whatever I decide. Currently, he's asleep, so we'll be discussing everything at breakfast. Thanks again, everyone. Many people offered support and advice, pointing out the seriousness of the situation. Some suggested that if the baby is a little girl, we could name her after my mother or grandmother or another influential woman in my life. If it's a boy, the idea of giving him my surname or something similar was appealing. A strong consensus emerged that Joan should never see either child again. Several commenters emphasized that what happened constitutes reproductive coercion and assault, urging me to contact the police or a lawyer to explore legal options, depending on state laws regarding reproductive coercion. They pointed out that saving any damaged condoms as evidence could be crucial. Forgiving Joan, many argued, would essentially condone her actions and imply she could invade my life without consequences. The need for therapy was mentioned to process the anger towards Joan separately from the feelings about the baby. There was a strong warning that if Joan isn't held accountable, she might feel entitled to boast about her actions or even interfere again. Protecting our first child from internalizing any sense of inadequacy because she's a girl or from thinking coercion is acceptable was highlighted as vital. Concerns were raised that Joan might escalate her manipulative behavior, potentially trying to undermine my parenting to gain control. Some shared personal experiences with difficult in-laws, suggesting supervised visits in public places as a potential compromise if Mark wished to maintain some contact, but only after trustworthiness was proven. Changing locks, getting door cameras, and intercepting gifts were also practical suggestions. Regarding the family name, it was pointed out that we have the freedom to choose any name, including my family name, especially given Joan's actions. The importance of Mark actively handling his parents and enforcing boundaries was stressed, with suggestions ranging from mandatory apologies to long-term bans on unsupervised visitation. The potential danger was underscored. If I had been on birth control pills, she might have tampered with those, potentially causing severe health issues or even death. Many felt that a restraining order would not be an overreaction and that establishing firm boundaries, including refusing contact and involving police if harassment occurs, is necessary for our family's safety and well-being. The prevailing sentiment was that Joan's actions deserved scorched earth consequences, and she should never have an unsupervised relationship with her grandchildren due to the profound breach of trust. My fiancé, John, doesn't want to invite his sister-in-law to our wedding because he claims she has feelings for him, when it's more the other way around. My fiancé, John, has a younger brother, Richard, and he is married to Clara. Clara is a beautiful woman both inside and out. She is one of the nicest people I've ever met, and is an amazing and supportive friend, perhaps the best friend I've ever had. John, Richard, and Clara went to school together. Richard and Clara have been together for 20 years. They married pretty much straight out of high school. During their time at school, John and Clara went on one date before she started dating Richard. John had been hounding her for a date, and she eventually said yes to try and make Richard jealous, as she liked him but didn't think he felt the same way. Yes, I'm completely aware this is ridiculous, but Clara was 13 at the time. Clara told me about this date pretty early on. She had wanted me to know in case I thought she had feelings for John. She made it very clear that she's never had romantic feelings for John and that she just used him for that one date to make Richard jealous. I do know that John had feelings for Clara and, from what he said, that he stopped having them since we've been together. John and I are currently in the process of planning our wedding for next summer. We've been putting together a list of who we want to ask to be a part of the wedding party and who we want to invite to the wedding. I want to have Clara as one of my bridesmaids because I know she will be supportive and reliable. John frowned and told me that he wasn't planning on Clara being part of the wedding. I asked if he had a falling out with Richard and wasn't inviting him either. Isn't there a package deal as a married couple? Plus, there is no way one would attend without the other. He replied that he hadn't fallen out with his brother, but he couldn't see himself getting married with Clara there as, according to him, she still has feelings for him, and he wouldn't want her to ruin our day. I know for a fact that she doesn't. I asked him if she had confessed feelings or something. He said no, but it's the way she is with him. He gave examples like how she's always around our house. Clara and I run together 3 times a week. As I live closer to her work, she comes to ours to change instead of going home. How she'll make his favorite dessert when we celebrate Christmas at theirs. His birthday is Christmas Eve. How she does little thoughtful things like dropping off baked goods for us. Or how she takes an interest in things he is interested in. The 3 of them support the same football team. To me, none of this is Clara showing she has romantic feelings for him. She's just being a good friend. I told him this, but he is insistent on not inviting Clara to the wedding. I know that if Clara isn't invited, Richard won't attend, and it will snowball further as the family are really close, but it will look like I'm the one causing this. I reached out to Clara after the conversation with John, and I asked her to be honest with me if she had any sort of romantic feelings for John. At first, Clara laughed at the idea of her having any sort of feelings for John. She then admitted that until I met John, he had made her uncomfortable, but it had lessened since we got together 2 years ago. She explained that John would make comments about how they were more suited than her and Richard. He used to send her drunk messages about how they belonged together. She told me that Richard knew about the messages, and they had pulled themselves away from John during that period but only allowed him back in when I started dating him. I asked her if he had sent her anything like that since we'd been together. Clara went quiet on the phone before saying that he had sent her a message at the weekend when John, Richard, and some of their friends had gone out drinking. She had canceled on running this week, but hadn't given me a reason, and it turns out that she is avoiding John. Richard also hasn't been talking to his brother since the night out because of the message. She sent me the message, and it was very explicit. He told her that he wished he was the father of her child. Clara's pregnant with their 4th child, and not Richard, and how he'd be a better dad than Richard could ever be. I'm not sure what to do. I love John, and he is convinced that Clara has feelings for him when she's made it clear that she does not. I thought John had moved on, but he's now sending Clara messages. Is there anything I can do, or is the relationship just doomed? My fiancé doesn't want his sister-in-law to be invited to the wedding, saying it's because she has feelings for him. Turns out he has feelings for her and has started sending her messages again, saying that he loves her and they belong together. Not that it makes anything better. John was 15 when they had the date. Clara is 6 months younger than her husband. She's 34 next month. I've told John that we need to talk when he comes back from taking his mom to an appointment this morning. It's nothing serious, just taking her to get new glasses, but she needs the help as she's got mobility issues. I think he knows I want to talk about Clara, as he asked if it was about Clara and the wedding. I said yes, and he sighed before telling me we would discuss it when he comes back. I'm going to put together a weekend bag so I can leave quickly if needed. I've texted Clara and Richard to tell them I'm going to talk to John about his behavior because it needs to change, and he needs to realize that nothing will ever happen with Clara. Richard responded wishing me luck, and has said their house is open to me if I need it. He also apologized for me having to go through this, as they shouldn't have stuck their heads in the sand about this hoping it would go away. I know I should have brought this up after she told me, but I'm very non-confrontational and will try and avoid an argument if I can. John and I had a talk when he came back. I told him that I knew about the text he had sent Clara at the weekend. He denied it straight away, telling me she was a fantasist, but quickly changed his tune once I started reading him the text. He then started to apologize and claimed it was just a moment of weakness after Richard had been showing the group pictures from their family holiday last month. One of them had made a comment about Clara being out of Richard's league, which reminded John that he had lost his chance with Clara all those years ago. He then sent her the text. I asked him how he would feel if it had been Richard harassing his partner, and he just lowered his head and said he would be upset, but that Richard didn't deserve Clara. I told him that Clara wasn't an object to be given to whoever is deemed worthy of her, and that she chose Richard, and that should have been enough for him. The fact there is someone out there who loves Richard for who he is and makes his brother happy should be enough. John told me that he was jealous of Richard as he is everything he wanted, and it wasn't fair because he's the eldest. Richard did better than John in school. He was better at sports. Richard is more successful as he was able to do what he wanted. John feels he had to do what his parents expected while Richard could go to university for whatever he wanted. Seeing Clara with Richard is a reminder that Richard has everything he wants. I asked John if Clara was single and interested in him. Would he leave me? John refused to answer the question, but it was all I needed to hear. I told John that I was going to stay elsewhere for a couple of days while I figure out where I will go, because we are over. I don't want to stay living with someone who doesn't care about me. When I went to go and get the bag I packed, John asked me if he could have the ring back as it is a family heirloom. It belonged to his nana and was intended for whoever got married first. But when Richard asked for it, John apparently threw a massive tantrum over it, saying that it should be his as he is the eldest, so their mom said Richard couldn't have it. I told him no, it was going to the person who it was meant to go to, Clara. I'm now at Richard and Clara's for a couple of days while I figure out getting a new place to stay or if I will move closer to my family. I work for myself, so that makes things easier. Richard and Clara have decided they will be going low contact with John. They'd go no contact, but it will cause drama with the family, and neither want that, especially Clara. John called Richard asking if I was with them, but Richard told John that he had no idea where I was. Richard then proceeded to tell John that they are going low contact with him because of the way John has been towards Clara and that he is now doing what he should have done years ago and protecting Clara. Clara has apologized several times as she feels she's the reason my relationship has ended, but I have reassured her that the only person at fault here is John, and I do not blame her for anything. If anything, she is a victim in all of this too. I've given her the ring, but she has said that I should give it back to their mother-in-law as she doesn't want it. I wish I had seen John's behavior before it got this far, but I was blinded by love. Looking back, I can see there were red flags that I just decided to ignore. Reactions online strongly reflected the severity of the situation. People pointed out that John is obsessed with another woman, Clara, to the point of telling her he wished he fathered her children. The consensus was that I was merely a placeholder for John. If Clara ever became available, he would undoubtedly pursue her, making the relationship doomed from the start. Questions were raised about why anyone would marry someone clearly in love with someone else, emphasizing that I was the backup plan and questioning whether I wanted a father for my future children who wished another woman was their mother. Commenters laid out the stark choices. Marry him knowing he loves Clara, leading to resentment and the constant knowledge that he could leave at any moment for her, or leave him now, putting myself first and likely being grateful later for not settling. The decision and its consequences, they stressed, were mine alone. Many urged me not to marry him, stating I deserved to be someone's first choice, which I clearly wasn't with John. The explicit text message was seen as an undeniable sign to leave. While some acknowledged the possibility of trying to make it work through therapy and distancing from Clara and Richard, the overwhelming advice was to break up, as the foundation for the relationship, let alone a marriage, was fundamentally flawed. The fear was that if anything ever happened between Richard and Clara, John would immediately try to make a move on her, regardless of her feelings. Keeping Clara and Richard as friends while saying goodbye to John was frequently suggested. Some framed John's behavior more harshly, calling him a stalker disturbingly focused on his sister-in-law and labeling me as his "I'm a nice safe guy" costume, used to regain access to Richard and Clara. They warned that marrying him wouldn't fix his creepy behavior and that his family was deluded if they thought otherwise. The early history, specifically a 15-year-old John pressuring a 13-year-old Clara for a date, and his continued harassment over the years, was highlighted as deeply problematic, with disbelief expressed that Richard and Clara hadn't cut him off sooner. His desire to exclude Clara from the wedding was seen as punishing her for rejecting his advances, knowing it would hurt her relationship with me. The conclusion from many was clear. I was a placeholder because he couldn't have Clara, and I should call off the wedding, relieved that this truth emerged before a potential divorce.